Right, non-governmental organizations play a critical role in driving and promoting change in the world. So whether it is lobbying for better environment, regulations, implementing social programs, or advocating for good governance, NGOs are rightly a force to be reckoned with. So in case you didn't know, today is World NGO Day, a day that highlights the importance of the sector in bringing about social justice and transformation. Let's chat now to Ravi Naidoo, who is the CEO of the Youth Employment Service, about this. A very good evening to you, Mr. Naidoo. Thanks indeed for your time. So, I mean, what's the importance of NGOs? And I think especially in the midst of, a global pandemic and growing unemployment.
Yes, thanks very much for having me on the show. Non-governmental organizations, NGOs, they play a very important role because they can work with governments and they can work with the private sector. They are focused on a particular mission, and they generally are, smaller organizations that can get into sort of having an impact on the ground. So they play a very important supporting role in making a contribution to society on the ground, but they can also advise, as you say, and lobby for changes because, they are the ears and eyes on the ground. So I think they play an important role. South Africa, we have about 100,000 NGOs, and ourselves as a Youth Employment Service, we are a non-profit organization, but created by the private sector. And our focus is trying to have an impact on youth employment.
And how have you, as YES, helped to develop solutions, in particular for corporates, to support the NGO sector?
Yeah. So we were created in 2018 by the CEO Initiative, which is the private sector, sort of essentially a number of large and important companies looking at how to have an impact. And we are a collaboration with the government. So we have legislation and companies that work with us to sponsor youth into jobs. They can get 1 or 2 levels up in BE, depending on the impact that they make. And how we work with other NGOs, as an NGO, we also fund other NGOs who we work with to have an impact in particular sectors. So, for example, we put about 2,000 to 3,000 young people into jobs every month, funded by the private sector. And they either go to work in private companies, or about 1/3 of these youth go to work in non-profit organizations in particular sectors. So we work with these other non-profits to get youth placed into high impact work.
And I wanted to expand on that. I mean, how have you been working over the years to try and place young people in employment in particular? Because it seems to be the group that is largely affected whenever there's an increase in the numbers that we see pertaining to unemployment in South Africa.
Yes, so that's quite right. I mean, we have 3 out of 4 youth don't have jobs. And we think it's probably going to get worse given what's happened with the pandemic and the impact in terms of schooling. So what we do, we've supported 72,000 youth into jobs in the last couple of years. And that's about 4 billion rand in salaries that have gone to them. So when we put a young person into a job, they work for 12 months. And they get work experience, they end up with a CV and reference letters and so on that make them much more employable. And we work in partnership with other institutions. So, for example, in health, we put 615 young people to work in health programs with other nonprofits. And they work with, in this case, local mining communities. And they do health testing on workers, work in the mines. They work with the local clinics to do filing so that when you go to the clinic to see the nurse, then your waiting time is much reduced because now you have someone helping with filing. And we find that, for example, people don't miss their appointments. They used to miss 50% of their appointments, but because there's follow-up from the young workers, 90% of the people make their appointments. And so it has an impact as well in terms of that sort of health sector. So it's a job plus an impact on the health sector. And we work with non-profits in the renewable space, in health, in IT, a whole range of sectors, including manufacturing, agriculture, and so on.
Yeah.
So we are one non-profit that is, I think, having a big impact. But it only works because, it's very much a collaboration model with the private sector and the government.
Certainly a great job that you and others are doing. Thank you very much indeed. Ravi Naidoo, who's the CEO of the Youth Employment Service, speaking us today on World NGO Day. We appreciate your time.